All right, Larry Krueger here for a 49er video as John Lynch spoke to KMBR today, and let's go through everything that John Lynch said today on the radio in advance of Niners Bucks, and it was a good segment with John with Murph and Marcus. Now they started off talking about the Rams game, and he's like, "Man, fun game. We competed our butts off." He cited the O line, the D line, talked about Mac Jones and how he had to eat bananas and drink pickle juice to avoid cramping, and they thought he blew out his knee, and just to get a win on the road against a good divisional opponent. Alfred Collins punch out, talked about the fun locker room afterwards, and then just said, "Man, Stafford's got this back injury. He was supposed to be done. So much for that. He looks as good as ever." So they started off talking a little bit about the Rams win, and then they started talking about the performance of the rookies. And, Murph said, "Hey, Fred Warner said John Lynch is going to love this one because the rookies really played well." And John, kind of pushed back. He said, "Man, I enjoy all the wins, whether the rookies play well or not." He said, "These guys, though, are making plays and showing up." And he's talking about that rookie class and playing hurt. Guys like Mikael Williams and C.J. West played hurt in this last game. And John cited their performance. The Niners actually don't have a bye, believe it or not, till week 14, which is a long ways off. But they definitely enjoyed their mini bye, according to Lynch. He said they got away and got some time to kind of rest up a little bit for this Tampa game. He was asked about the health of Mac Jones, and Mac Jones appeared on the injury list with a couple different injuries. He's got a knee, he's got an oblique. Lynch said that, hey, we feel good about his health. We feel good about his health currently. So he's trending towards starting in this game in Tampa on Sunday. They feel good about Mac Jones. As far as a rivalry between Mac and Brock, I thought this was an interesting part of the interview where, Steve Young said, "Hey, man," and Steve Young lived it, right? Steve Young and Joe Montana battled for the quarterback job in the late 80s and early 90s. It was Joe's job. Steve was ascending. Joe was in decline. And so he understands the dynamics at play anytime there's two starting quarterbacks on one team. And Steve said to KMBR earlier in the week, it's awkward. There's creative tension. And I'm sure Steve is right. I'm sure it is awkward. I'm sure there is creative tension. But Lynch pointed out that Brock has an incredible amount of humility as a person and is nothing but happy for the team. And I do get the sense that that's not just talk either, that they really do have a great quarterback room because Brock Purdy's a very high ethic guy. And he's going to set the tone in that room. So is Mac out there doing the job that Brock wants to do? Yeah. Does Brock want to be out there? Yeah, badly. Is Brock willing to get out there even if he's hurt? Maybe, which is kind of a concern because the Niners probably need to protect Brock from himself. But there's not going to be any fractures. That room's really solid. You got Adrian Martinez and Curtis Rourke. You get two other quarterbacks in that room as well. You got Brock, who's really a great in how fine-tuning, how intricate his preparation is. He will not move on until they have an answer for every single thing a defense can potentially throw at the quarterback or the Niners offense. So I think Brock's preparation is really good. It's probably helping Mac quite a bit. But I don't believe that there's bad blood there. Do they both want to start? Yeah. Do they both want to be the guy? Yeah. But I don't think there's any bad blood there. And I think it's probably one of the strengths of this football team is that quarterback room and the leadership that emanates from it. All right, of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And 49er football season on the Krug Show is presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and, of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use promo code Larry, Larry, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. That's right, a C-note coming to you. Links in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. And thanks to Sleeper for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, let's talk more about the Niners as they prep for Tampa Bay. Murph and Marcus asked John Lynch today about Brock Purdy's status. And he said, hey, look, he's working on the side. He wants to get back, but he wants to get back at full strength. They asked, why did Brock stay behind in San Francisco? And John just said, hey, look, we thought he could rehab a little bit better and avoid the flight. There was no chance he was going to play. So that's what the decision they made. It'll be interesting to see if Purdy flies to Tampa on Sunday. They asked about, and as far as a timeline, they said, hey, look, there's a timeline for Brock's return. I mean, they could throw something out, but they're just going to have to play it day by day and see how it goes. So there is no timeline for his return. But you got to think that he's probably going to try to get out there in the next 3 or 4 weeks because he didn't want to go on IR. IR means he's out for 4 weeks. So my guess is 2-3 weeks from now, you're going to see Brock Purdy try to get back out there again. George Kittle, who was asked about George Kittle, and he said there's a good chance for next week against Atlanta. You know, they don't want to have a recurrence of the hamstring pull. They need Kittle badly. He's obviously a key to their run game. They need to unlock that run game ASAP, but they don't want to rush him back. So he'll be back next week against Atlanta, most likely. As far as wide receiver health, Jennings, Pearsall, Ayuk are all out currently and trying to make their way back. About Ayuk, Lynch said, hey, he's making strides. He's obviously not ready. And as far as Pearsall, he didn't practice on Wednesday. It says he's trying to get ready, but it doesn't sound like it's likely. And then as far as Jennings, he says he's doing what he can. And so if you said, describe how Lynch kind of just, would evaluate their playing statuses, I'd say Ayuk out, Pearsall is likely out, probably doubtful, and Jennings sounds like he's questionable, 50-50. Maybe Jennings can get out there and do his thing. Until that happens, Kendrick Bourne, Demarcus Robinson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore are all ready to step up, and they're going to need to. The biggest moment of this sit down came when Murph asked John about the trade deadline, which is November 4th. It's looming, and Murph just asked the question, "Hey, is a pass rusher coming?" And John said, "Hey, we'll see." He said, "We've had discussions. It has to be the right move. It has to be a match. He says we're putting in the work, and we'll see." I think they would like to get something done, but I think if you're waiting for Trey Hendrickson or Jeffrey Simmons, I don't think that's coming. I don't think the big, massive move that cost them lots of draft capital is going to be what they choose. I think they're going to look to move. My guess is late day 2 picks, maybe early day 3 picks, and maybe pick up more than one player. But if they continue to play well, and they're 4-1 right now, you can bet that John Lynch is going to do everything in his power to add to this football team. I really do believe they'll make a move. Will they make a major move? I don't know. Brad Graham had a great suggestion the other day. He was suggesting Miles Murphy from Cincinnati. Murphy's 23. He's a great athlete, and he just needs to be coached up. I think the kind of player that they're going to control into the future is probably a more likely acquisition than the free agent to be type player, because you just don't want to spend a lot of money and then have the guy walk away, especially not on the heels of spending big money on Hargrave, getting not a lot out of that, doing the Trey Lance trade, losing draft capital, not getting a lot out of that. I don't think they want to put a lot of. I think they would rather buy a cheaper player than a more expensive player, but we'll see. We'll see. Tony Dungy also called into the show, John's ex-head coach, and it's funny. He told a story about John knocked out his brother-in-law when his brother-in-law played tight end for the Bears, and John ran to the sidelines, and he said, "John, you just knocked out your brother-in-law," and John said, "Today he's a bear." So I knocked out a bear. So great. I mean, just a little glimpse into what made John Lynch tick as a Hall of Fame football player. And Tony Dungy, by the way, predicted Niners Tampa this weekend will just be a prelude to what he thinks is going to be a playoff showdown between the Niners and the Buccaneers. So that would be really fun to watch. The Niners and the Bucs, clearly two of the best teams in the NFL, definitely two of the best teams in the NFC. All right, that's going to do it for us. I'm off to practice. Kyle Shanahan spoke yesterday. We'll talk to Robert Saleh. We'll go into the locker room, and then we'll be back tonight for Niners Nightly after Thursday Night Football. So thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to Sleeper. The links are in the description for all of our sponsors. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.